Good morning, happy Monday. Welcome to your daily Solo 401k webinar Q&A session with my Solo 401k Financial. Here's where we answer your questions live on the air. We cover certain topics and we try to help you stop overpaying taxes. And hopefully it'll result in building tax shelter wealth for use in your golden years. So today's topic is, can I move my 401k to a self-directed IRA without penalty? So we'll go over this topic. As always, this is your chance to get answers. So go ahead and chat them over, type them over, so that we can get to them. We'll pause and answer questions as they come in. And they don't have to be specific to today's topic. They can be surrounding any aspect about self-directed IRAs. And of course, solo 401k plans. I see we have some questions already. Let's take a look at some of these questions. A two-owner S Corporation solo 401k for tax year 2025. Can one owner have the S Corp contribute to his pre-tax account and the other contribute to her after-tax account? If so, ideas how to make it equitable. So keep in mind that with the solo 401k plan, because it's not a traditional 401k defined as a 401k that employs common law W-2 employees who are not owners, you're able to decide your contribution types and your limits up to the overall limit. What is more, when you have an S corporation with two owner W-2 employees, one can choose to make employer contributions, whether pre-tax employer contributions or Roth employer contributions. So one may make Roth employer contributions, the other may make pre-tax employer contributions. So it's up to the W-2 owner-only employees which type of contribution they want to make and how much. The key is that each does not go over the overall limit, which, for example, is $70,000 for tax year 2025 for those who are under age 50. And again, that $70,000 is per owner employee. So if you got two W-2 owner employees in the same S corporation, they can each contribute up to $70,000, assuming they have enough W-2 wages in their respective W-2s. So that's the great thing about a solo 401k. That is that unlike a traditional 401k where you have to worry about discrimination and testing, none of that applies to a solo 401k plan where the only employees in the business are the owners in the business. Hence why it's called an owner-only 401k. Other common names to refer to an owner-only 401k is solo 401k, self-employed 401k, self-directed 401k, checkbook solo 401k, unit K, single K. It just comes down to the financial institution that offers the solo 401k with respect to what type of label they want to assign to that solo 401k plan. But at the end of the day, it's an owner-only 401k, meaning it's for owner-only businesses that do not employ any full-time W-2 employees who are not owners and work 1,000 hours or more in the business. If you employ a W-2 employee who is not an owner in the business and he or she works 1,000 hours or more, then you would not be able to open a solo 401k plan. Okay, let's see here. Yes, the webinar has started. So go ahead and type your questions over. Again, we're talking about whether or not you can move a 401k to a self-directed IRA without penalty. So let's go over that. So what is a self-directed IRA? Well, a self-directed IRA follows the same rules as a traditional IRA or Roth IRA. Of course, the acronym IRA stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement, but most people understand it as an individual retirement account. But if you look at the IRS code, it actually stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement. So self-directed, when you add the word self-directed to an IRA, it basically is used to denote how you have more control, more investment flexibility beyond Wall Street. In other words, with most IRAs, you can only invest in equities, stocks, mutual funds, and so forth. Whereas self-directed means not only can you invest in equities, but you can also invest in alternative investments, such as physical real estate, whether commercial or residential real estate, cryptocurrency, precious metals. I know that gold hit an all-time high today. It's now over $5,100. And it's actually taken over as the reserve currency of the world. It used to be the dollar. Well, now gold has overtaken the dollar as the reserve currency of the world. So you can also, so that's a very hot investment, including silver. You can also invest in private equity, promissory notes, whether secured or unsecured. Typically, when you invest in promissory notes through a retirement account, you want to make it so that it's secured by real estate. When it's secured by real estate, that's referred to as a trust deed investment, which means that if the borrower defaults on that self-directed IRA promissory note investment, then the self-directed IRA has recourse over that real estate, which can do a reconveyance, resulting in taking over that property. So when you invest in promissory notes through a solo 401k, or excuse me, through a self-directed IRA, you typically want to make sure it's in first position. You can also invest in tax liens. So self-directed, again, also means that you can invest in alternative investments besides just equities. Now, is there a penalty or tax when you transfer your 401k to a self-directed IRA? No. So the key is to make sure that if you have a 401k through your daytime employer, for example, you need to make sure that that 401k can be transferred to that self-directed IRA. Because when you transfer from a 401k plan to a self-directed IRA, it's going to be processed as a direct rollover. So the funds move directly from the 401k to the self-directed IRA custodian. So you don't want to take possession of the funds, which means depositing those funds to your personal bank account. You always want to make sure you deposit that transfer check directly into that self-directed IRA, and you want to make sure it's made payable in the name of the IRA custodian. For example, if the name of the IRA custodian is Forge Trust, and you're transferring your former employer 401k, you're going to want to ask your former employer 401k to make that check payable in the name of Forge Trust, comma, custodian of your name IRA. And then they'll mail that check directly to Forge Trust or any other self-directed IRA custodian that you use for deposit into that self-directed IRA. In some instances, the former employer may even wire those 401k funds directly to that self-directed IRA. The key is that you don't deposit those funds into your personal bank account. So generally, you can only transfer your 401k with your full-time employer under certain circumstances. You have to meet a triggering event. So the most common is once you separate from service. So meaning that you stop working for that employer. you no longer work for that full-time employer, so you're changing jobs. So that's under the IRS regulations, that's an event that allows for the transfer of that former employer 401k to that self-directed IRA. Another event that will allow you to transfer that full-time employer 401k is your age, retirement age. If you're age 59 and a half or older, even if you're still working for that employer, you can transfer those funds from that current employer, full-time employer 401k to the self-directed IRA. So that's another event that allows for the movement of a former employer 401k or a current employer 401k to a self-directed IRA. Now, some current employer 401k plans, even if you're still working for that employer, will allow you to transfer some of those funds out to the self-directed IRA. For instance, let's say you transferred an IRA or another former employer 401k to that current full-time employer 401k. Some employers will allow you to transfer those rollover funds out of the plan to the self-directed IRA. Also, some employers will allow you to transfer some of the employer profit-sharing contributions from that 401k for your current daytime employer 401k if they've been in that plan for a couple years or 5 years. So bottom line is, if you're considering transferring your full-time employer 401k to a self-directed IRA because you want to be able to invest in alternative investments, like I say earlier, cryptocurrency, precious metals, real estate, then you'll want to ultimately ask for a copy of the summary plan description from that employer so that you can determine whether or not any or some of your current employer 401k funds can be transferred to a self-directed IRA. That summary plan description agreement, as it denotes, summarizes the benefits of the plan as well as the regulations within that full-time employer 401k. Now, keep in mind that when you transfer a full-time employer 401k to a self-directed IRA, you can transfer an unlimited amount depending on whether or not you meet one of those triggering events. That transfer from that full-time employer 401k to the self-directed IRA is not going to impact your ability to also make an IRA contribution for the year. What determines whether or not you can contribute to an IRA is whether or not you have earned income. Because again, when you make a contribution to an IRA, you got to base it on earned income, such as W-2 wages. So for tax year 2025, the IRA contribution limit is $7,000 for those under age 50. It went up to $8,000 for tax year 2026. Now, you want to consider some items before you take the plunge of transferring your full-time employer 401k to a self-directed IRA. So again, as long as you meet a triggering event, that transfer is not going to result in having to pay taxes. It's considered a non-taxable direct rollover. You may not want to transfer all those funds out of that full-time employer 401k, however. You may want to leave some in that full-time employer 401k because unlike self-directed IRAs or any IRA for that matter, they're not fully protected from creditors or in bankruptcy, so bankruptcy creditors. Whereas full-time employer 401k plans, they are afforded full protection in bankruptcy as well as from general creditors, not IRAs. Bankruptcy protection for IRAs, there's a ceiling amount. So, for example, it's $1,711,975. That's the current maximum protection afforded for IRAs in bankruptcy. Now, from general creditors, that one there, that falls at the state level. So it depends on your state of residence as to whether or not your self-directed IRA is protected from general creditors. So you're going to have to determine your state of residence, obviously, and then find out what that specific state's code is regarding protection from general creditors for your IRAs. Some states provide some creditor protection, while others provide no creditor protection from general creditors for your IRA. So that's why you may want to consider not transferring all of your full-time employer 401k funds to a self-directed IRA, but maybe just some of those funds, so that way you can shield some of those from general creditors as well as under bankruptcy protection. So you'll want to do some planning. So even though you get more flexibility with the self-directed IRA from an investment perspective, it may not be as advantageous from a general creditor or bankruptcy protection. Now, many individuals out there like to invest their self-directed IRA in an IRA LLC, also known as a checkbook IRA. So using a LLC in conjunction with your IRA will provide protection from general creditors under that LLC. And that results in the transferring that former employer 401k to that self-directed IRA, and then investing that self-directed IRA in an LLC, where the self-directed IRA is the single member of that LLC. So the LLC will have its own separate bank account. You still need to open up a self-directed IRA. Again, there's a company out there called Forge Trust, for example, that offers self-directed IRAs. You would transfer that former employer 401k to that self-directed IRA, and then that self-directed IRA would get invested in that LLC. So the funds would be transferred from that former employer 401k to the self-directed IRA custodian, in this example, Forge Trust. And then that self-directed IRA through Forge Trust would then get invested in that LLC, where Forge Trust would wire the funds from that self-directed IRA directly to the LLC bank account, for which you are the manager of that LLC. So you want to make sure that while you can manage that LLC, you cannot get compensated for doing so. You also cannot perform any of the sweat equity work. Let's say you decide to invest that self-directed IRA LLC in physical real estate, some rental properties. While you can manage those properties, you cannot get compensated for it, nor can you perform sweat equity work. So you can't pick up a hammer or a paintbrush or fix a leaky toilet, for example. That has to be done by a third party. And those costs would be paid with funds from that LLC. So the LLC bank account is used to have funds paid for expenses, and also the rental income would flow back to that LLC bank account. And a lot of individuals also like to invest their self-directed IRA in an IRA LLC, aka Checkbook IRA, because it gives them quicker access to the funds when they want to make a timely investment. Whereas with if you do it directly to the self-directed IRA, that custodian may drag their feet. Also, oftentimes the self-directed IRA custodian is going to charge additional fees, such as holding fees, processing fees. Those fees can be alleviated by investing those in an IRA LLC, because the funds are held in that bank account, and you as the manager can write checks for those expenses, or have funds wired out to cover expenses in connection with investments for that IRA LLC, such as real estate, for example. So it gives you direct checkbook control. Now, here at my solo 401k financial, we do offer the IRA LLC facilitation, and we'll set up that LLC for you, where we'll prepare the LLC operating agreement. We'll register the LLC with the Secretary of State. The LLC will have its own employer identification number. We'll obtain that, and then we'll coordinate the funding of that self-directed IRA to that LLC bank account. We'll provide ongoing compliance support regarding the self-directed IRA and IRA LLC regulations. And we do that at a flat fee. You can learn more about that by visiting our website. Okay, so let's see if we have some questions here. So if you're finding this information helpful, we would appreciate it if you can like and subscribe, as it helps spread the word and it helps other IRA holders, investors, as well as even solo 401k individuals who are looking to open up a solo 401k to find this information. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you receive notifications regarding when we go live. We go live typically at least once a day, many times twice a day. For example, we'll be going live again here in a few hours. Let's see here. Here's a question here. My wife and I signed up for a solo 401k in 2025. We receive account information from Charles Schwab. Total of 6 brokerage accounts, 3 for each. So that makes sense because each participant is required to have separate holding accounts under that solo 401k to hold their funds. Let's see. My wife wants to make a contribution for 2025 and had 31,000 payroll, but I'm unclear which of the Roth accounts that would go in. So good question. So since you set up that plan in 2025 by signing the solo 401k plan documents, you qualify to make tax year 2025 contributions here in 2026. And that's true for all contribution types, such as pre-tax, employer Roth, employee Roth, and voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions. So you're going to be able to make all contribution types, and you get to decide what type of contribution you want to make to the plan, and each spouse can decide which type of contribution they want to make. They don't have to make the same types of contributions. So here's an example of a 2-participant plan. So if you have an S corporation self-employed business, that means it's just one plan. You're both working under the same business, which means that you're both participants in the plan. So it's a defined contribution plan requiring separate holding accounts for each participant and each source of funds. So that's good that you have a total of 6 separate Schwab brokerage accounts. If you don't know which brokerage accounts are which, you can actually log in and you can label those brokerage accounts, especially now that they have a 0 balance. You can name them. It's called nicknaming those accounts. So you'll be able to name the first one pre-tax, the second one Roth, and the third one voluntary after-tax. You will do that times 2 for each of you. So each of you will have a total of 3 separate brokerage accounts for each source of funds. Now, as far as nicknaming those brokerage accounts, let me see if I can dig up something on our website regarding how to nickname your Schwab company retirement brokerage accounts that you opened for your self-directed solo 401k. And then going forward, once you nickname those accounts, you want to make sure that you keep them as is and that you make the contributions to the applicable account. For example, the pre-tax brokerage account, you're going to be able to make employee pre-tax solo 401k contributions, as well as employer pre-tax solo 401k contributions into that account. And then for the Roth holding account, you can make employee Roth solo 401k contributions or employer Roth solo 401k contributions into that specific brokerage account. The after-tax account, that's for the voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions as part of the mega backdoor Roth. So if you're going to make a voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution, you would make it into that holding account there, and then once it's inside that voluntary after-tax solo 401k brokerage account, then you would convert those to the Roth solo 401k plan. Once you move those to the Roth solo 401k plan, you'll complete our online conversion form on the Forms tab of our website. That's how we collect the necessary information to issue that Form 1099-R to the government and a copy to you to report that non-taxable conversion. That's why you want to make sure that when you make that voluntary after-tax contribution, that you convert those funds immediately to the Roth Solo 401k or to the Roth IRA so that there are little gains. Only the small gains when converted to the Roth Solo 401k or the Roth IRA will be subject to taxes. So with regards to nicknaming those brokerage accounts, I'm going to have to try to dig up that information on how to go in and nickname those brokerage accounts at Schwab. So what I'll do here is I'll have a member of our accounts team send you an email when I'm done here regarding how to nickname those brokerage accounts. Let me make a note here. Give me a moment here. Okay, so we'll send you an email here a little bit here this morning once I'm done with the webinar regarding how to nickname those brokerage accounts. Let's see if we have some more questions here. Okay, here's another question. Does a solo Roth 401k that has the same rules as a self-directed Roth IRA in regards to contributions that were transferred to the account and which can be withdrawn within 5 years? Does it Roth? So just like IRAs and 401ks have separate regulations from a contribution perspective, same is true when you're making distributions. Unlike a solo 401k where you have to meet a certain age in order to make distributions from that solo 401k, you can always distribute funds from an IRA. And regarding a Roth solo 401k and a Roth IRA, the distribution rules are also different. So Roth IRAs have specific distribution order rules. Typically with the Roth IRA, you always distribute the contributions first. And when you distribute the contributions made into a Roth IRA, that distribution is not going to be taxable because when you made that Roth IRA contribution, you made it with after-tax funds. Also, you will not have to pay a 10% penalty if you're under age 59 and a half. So once you distribute the contributions that you made to a Roth IRA, then after that, you can distribute any funds that you converted from a pre-tax IRA, such as a traditional IRA, or from a pre-tax 401k to the Roth IRA. Now with the Roth Solo 401k plan, the distribution can only be made, for example, if you meet a triggering event, such as age 59 and a half or older. If you're age 59 and a half or older, then you can distribute those Roth Solo 401k funds. However, you have to determine whether it's a qualified versus a non-qualified Roth Solo 401k distribution. Qualified means that you are both age 59 and a half or older, and you've had that Roth Solo 401k for at least 5 years. So you have to meet both of those events in order to distribute funds from a Roth Solo 401k tax and penalty free. And that would be considered what's referred to as a qualified Roth Solo 401k distribution. Now, if you meet the age 59 and a half requirement, but you have not had that Roth Solo 401k plan for at least 5 years, what's going to happen is that you're going to have to distribute some of the basis and some of the earnings in that Roth Solo 401k plan. What is more, even though the 10% penalty will not apply because you're age 59 and a half or older, you are going to have to pay taxes on those gains. So let's say you distribute a total of $5,000 from your Roth Solo 401k. You're age 59 and a half or older, but you have not had that Roth Solo 401k for 5 years. That means that the $2,500 would be basis. That's not going to be subject to taxes or a 10% penalty. However, the other $2,500 would be gains. You're going to have to pay federal taxes and possibly state taxes, depending on your state of residence, on that $2,500, even though you're age 59 and a half. And that's because you have not had that Roth Solo 401k plan for at least 5 years. We actually have a good page on our website that goes over the Roth Solo 401k distribution rules. Let me share that link here with you. Give me a moment while I dig that up here. Let's see here. Here's the link. So I'll share this here and take a look at that. Because now that a lot of individuals have had a chance to participate in both Roth IRAs and Roth Solo 401k plans, many individuals are now at retirement age and they need to start accessing their retirement funds. So it's good to understand those Roth Solo 401k distribution rules. So take a look at that link right there. Okay, it looks like we've come to the end of our webinar today. We appreciate you joining our daily webinar. As always, please like and subscribe if you haven't yet, so you receive notifications when we go live. We appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule to participate today. Hopefully it was worth it. We'll be back here again here in a few hours with more information regarding the Solo 401k rules, and you'll be able to ask more questions at that time. Until next time, have a great rest of the day.